When an arrogant millionaire abandons his own father in a hospital, fate crosses his path with the maid's son, a humble boy who gives the old man back what money never could, dignity. But when the father dies and leaves behind an unexpected letter, the wealthy son discovers that the heir to the true legacy isn't who he thought it was. And when he opens the last drawer of the past, he realizes, too late, that some treasures only reveal themselves to those who have learned how to love. Before we continue, subscribe now to our channel to receive everyday powerful stories that touch the heart. Augusto Villar breathes with difficulty as the cold hospital light draws shadows over his wrinkled face. A face that carries decades of honest work and memories no one wants to remember. The clock on the wall marks time as it drips away slowly, as if every second were an unspoken apology searching for someone to forgive it. The monitors blink in rhythms that resemble a weary but stubborn heart, one that insists on existing despite the loneliness pulsing like fever. The nurse gently straightens the sheets, places a glass of water on the metal tray, and leaves in silence, letting the air fill with the scent of antiseptic and longing. From the hallway, Helena watches with tearful eyes, her hand trembling as she holds a small bag with fruit, a notebook, and a simple vase of flowers. She thinks about her employer who doesn't listen, and about his father whom no one listens to either. Two silences touching like cold glass beneath the same window. Helena steps in quietly and whispers, "Good evening, Mr. Villar," and the name lands in the room like a blanket that can't quite warm enough. She sets the flowers on the nightstand and opens the notebook, promising to read a few verses from a poem she found in the closet. A poem about old men who teach the world how to stand again. Augusto Villar smiles faintly, a smile that flickers like candlelight at the edge of the wind, and he squeezes the hand that caresses his own as if it were the first time. The clock keeps insisting, each tick sounding like a step he climbs with his eyes, hoping there's a face waiting at the top that still remembers his faith. Helena speaks of small miracles from the day, how the coffee burned but still smelled like home, how a child laughed on the bus and the laughter stayed caught in her coat. She closes the notebook, adjusts his pillow, hides the ache in her back, and promises to return at the end of her shift with something to change the taste of the room. Outside, an elevator opens and closes like a mouth unsure whether to tell the truth or stay silent forever. Helena switches off the overhead light, leaves the bedside lamp glowing softly, and breathes deeply to keep from crying, like someone trying to hold back rain with empty hands. Before leaving, she kisses Augusto Villar's forehead and feels that his warm skin holds words that never had the chance to be born, when suddenly, a shadow stops on the other side of the door. Helena holds her breath as a quick reflection flashes on the window, a movement that doesn't match the calm of the night shift. She wonders if it's the night guard making rounds, but the weight of the footsteps in the hallway gives it away. Expensive shoes and a perfume that tries too hard to smell like power. Her heart races in her throat, because she knows that scent, as familiar as a signature engraved in cold, polished metal. The doorknob turns with a dry click, the same sound decisions make when they cut bridges, and for a moment she wishes time could learn to walk backward. Unsure whether to smile or hide, she stands between the bed and the door, like someone defending a secret she never asked to keep. The hallway lights invade through the gap, pushing away the dimness that had made the room a little less cruel to Augusto Villar's tiredness. Helena smooths the blanket one last time, pretends to search for something in her purse, and chooses silence, the kind of silence one uses as shelter when the door has no lock. She recalls the doctor's last words, "Watch the salt, keep visits short," as if love had an expiration date written on a prescription. The sound of a phone notification cuts through the air, and the screen shows a name that tightens her stomach with both fear and habit. She swallows hard, knowing that some truths enter any room uninvited and turn off the light with their very presence. Still, she adjusts her hair, lifts her chin, and decides she won't look away from someone who spent a lifetime looking away first. The hallway falls quiet again, that kind of silence that warns ears when words have already failed. Augusto Viller moves his fingers as if reaching for a memory, one that slips away like water through old floorboards. Helena holds his hand once more, as if nailing a piece of sky to the ground before the wind takes away what still holds up hope. The door turns slowly, and a flash of a luxury watch appears first, as if the metal arrived before the man who wears it. Helena feels the temperature drop 2 degrees when the face of Marcelo Viller, the millionaire only son, appears with the trained indifference of someone who charges interest from his own reflection. He looks at his father without really seeing him, as if checking on inventory that stopped moving, and glances at Helena as though calculating an extra expense in his spreadsheet. In the depths of his eyes lies a weariness that doesn't ask for a bed, but for applause, and he doesn't realize that applause makes terrible pillows. Helena greets him with measured politeness, and Marcelo Viller responds with the slightest nod, already pulling his phone from his pocket, as if any screen were more urgent than a heartbeat. He asks about Augusto Viller's condition in an email-like tone, leaving no room for feeling, and mentally notes an okay that excludes touch, memory, and the smell of freshly baked bread. Helena wants to tell him that his father keeps secrets only hands can read, but she knows that some doors, once opened, bring the whole house down. The millionaire checks his watch, mentions an early meeting, and says, "The hospital is competent. Nothing to worry about," as if competence could fill empty chairs. Augusto Viller tries to say his son's name, but his throat gives out halfway, and the sound becomes a thread of air begging for warmth. Marcelo steps forward 2 paces, then back 1, like someone lighting a flame with a stick and pretending the spark isn't his. Helena swallows the urge to scream, counts her breaths, and chooses to say only that she'll return at the end of her shift with fresh flowers and vegetable soup. The millionaire forces a polite smile and tucks it away in the same pocket where he keeps black cards, gray promises, and sundaes that don't smell like home. On the windowsill, an old photo of little Marcelo begins to slide and nearly falls, as if gravity had remembered an old duty. Helena catches it on instinct and sets it back upright. The cold glass returns to the room, a past no one dares to touch. She bids him good night, says, "Excuse me," and leaves, knowing she left more inside that room than she took, and that outside weighs more than she can carry. Behind her, Marcelo's phone vibrates with an urgent message, and his face hardens like stone freshly washed by rain. Marcelo Viller closes the hospital room door with the grace of a guillotine that's learned manners, walks down the corridor, and is already in another conversation. In the elevator, his reflection adjusts itself in the polished steel. The expensive suit fits like armor tailored to keep him from feeling. He replies to messages with the speed of someone running on treadmills that go nowhere, but make enough noise to sound like progress. Downstairs, the air smells of air conditioning and luxury parking lots, and the headlights of imported cars draw lines on the asphalt like signatures of power. Marcelo slides into the back seat, tells the driver to go faster, and the city makes way, bowing to respect that was bought and silence that was rented. On the dashboard, elegant jazz hums softly, trying to teach his heart the trick of enjoying what doesn't embrace back. He raises the volume as if giving it an order. His mind drifts to the office, where trophies shine without warmth and awards reflect a man who won without real witnesses. He thinks of Augusto Viller the way one thinks of an old contract, useful while it yields, disposable when it tires, archived when it feels too much. The driver says something about traffic, and Marcelo nods automatically, not listening. Expensive thoughts make their own kind of noise. He remembers that tomorrow brings tough negotiations with men who prefer firm handshakes and long accounts, and that emotion is a variable cost. At a red light, children sell candies with eyes that already know the alphabet of need, and he looks away, pretending the red is transparent. His phone vibrates again. A message from PR asking for a picture with his father for a human but discreet press release. Marcelo taps, "See later," and the later is born orphaned. It doesn't live at any address time, is willing to visit. He keeps believing that caring is the same as paying, that presence is a service one can outsource with a signed receipt. In the distance, a siren howls through the city, and for a fleeting second, the sound seems to spell a name he refuses to read. In the apartment, everything is so meticulously organized that even the air seems afraid to touch the objects with its breath. The shelves display the polished biography of a man with no edges. The kitchen gleams without the scent of garlic. The living room flaunts expensive paintings without sticky stories, and the balcony reveals a view that doesn't recognize anyone by their first name. Marcelo Viller drops his keys into a tray as if clocking out from his own heart and opens his laptop to wrestle with obedient spreadsheets. The tables obey numbers that never cry, columns aligned like soldiers marching without asking where to, and in that he finds a kind of industrial peace. In the refrigerator-scented silence, the image of Augusto Viller sitting at the edge of his bed, asking for water with his eyes, refuses to close the tab in his mind. A glass of golden whiskey promises boutique anesthesia, and he accepts it the way one accepts a lie that comes with a receipt. His phone lights up with an old photo, him as a child, in his father's arms, a simple cake, a crowded table, laughter that fit on cheap plates yet was worth more than any crystal glass. He zooms in until the image blurs, as if erasing pixels could erase what skin still remembers by heart, and closes it before his chest starts asking questions men like him can't answer. On the TV, a report about philanthropy runs without subtitles in his heart, and the word foundation sounds like cement rattling in an old can. He takes a deep breath, goes back to his spreadsheets, and convinces himself tomorrow will be better, because tomorrow always seems cheaper when paid for today with indifference. The intercom buzzes. The concierge announces a delivery, an envelope from an unnamed courier, and curiosity carries the old scent of letters that change destinies. Marcelo Viller opens it with technical disdain and pulls out a page containing the map of his childhood, drawn in pencil by a tired but faithful hand. It's Augusto Viller's handwriting, steady where it could have trembled, gentle where it could have been harsh, each letter unsheathing memories like bells awakening from silence. He reads the first line and feels the furniture rearrange itself, as if the room knew it would soon need space for regret. At the bottom of the page, a line bends the air of the house. "My son, the winner is the one who reaches the embrace alive." The whiskey loses its taste, his mouth loses its hurry, and he understands. There are debts that can't be settled without skin in the balance. Marcelo closes his eyes, trying to file the letter away in a drawer that doesn't exist, but the paper throbs in his pocket like a second pulse. He picks up the phone to call the hospital and check on Augusto Viller, rehearsing "I'll drop by in the morning," but the words trip over a "maybe later." His wristwatch feels heavier than it should, as if it were measuring not hours but unmade visits and birthdays left without pictures. He walks in perfect circles around the living room. The rug sketches routes that lead nowhere, while outside, the city breathes through the open window. The letter rests on the table with the stillness of objects waiting for a strange gesture to be read again, but this time with the heart open like a summer door. He sits down and reads it once more, and in each paragraph he finds a father he could never buy in a clearance sale of feelings, but might redeem at an auction of courage. His phone vibrates with a message from the board, a spreadsheet attached, and duty calls in a gentle siren's voice, promising control in exchange for forgetting. Marcelo closes the laptop for the first time without saving changes, and the dry click sounds like a period that refuses to respect the next paragraph. He walks to the balcony, feels the night wind, and realizes that some nights don't want company, they want honesty. There's a sudden urge to go downstairs, call the driver, return to the hospital, and sit by the bed like someone relearning how to ask for forgiveness. But pride, that keyless vault, locks the will inside and sells the key in foreign currency his soul can't afford. He decides to sleep in his suit, as if the fabric were a life jacket for the seas of memory, and lies down without removing his watch, afraid to lose the time for nothing important. On the nightstand, the letter remains open, and the moon reads it for him, words he cannot yet speak aloud, as if the night itself could translate what the day refuses to understand. Across the city, a hospital room waits for footsteps that don't know the way, and an old man dreams that his son still keeps his name folded like a blanket close to his heart. Marcelo Villar closes the curtains, but the glow of the paper persists, and the room stays too bright for a man who prefers darkness whenever he needs to face his own face. Helena ends her shift at the Villar mansion with aching hands, after hours of handling things that never ask for affection but always demand shine. She washes the last glass as if closing a chapter of a book that keeps repeating the same paragraph in cold, golden letters. On the table, she leaves a shopping list and a neatly written note, because she's learned that kindness, when put in writing, is harder to tear up in front of others. She grabs her worn-out purse, the coat that knows the weight of rain, and takes a deep breath before turning off the kitchen lights that never smell of garlic at 8 in the evening. In the hallway, expensive portraits observe without seeing, and Helena walks past them with the quiet steps of someone who doesn't need permission to care for what's fragile. She thinks of Augusto Villar lying in his hospital bed, of how his hand reaches for another even in sleep, and decides that some presences don't fit into an employer's schedule. In her modest room, Mateus waits with his notebook open and eyes that learn to listen before they learn to ask. "Can we take flowers to Mr. Augusto tomorrow?" he asks, holding the pen as if it were a promise already kept. Helena smiles with a tenderness that finds space between exhaustion, kisses the top of her son's head, and says yes, but carefully, so she won't lose her job. Mateus shows her a drawing, an old hand holding a young one, and in the middle, the word strength is an embrace that never lets go. Her heart gives way a little, as if making room in the living room for one more chair, and she realizes that to love is to furnish a home with what can't be sold. On the table, she arranges a small bouquet of simple flowers, wraps it in newspaper, and ties it with tape that sticks better to faith than to paper. She writes a card. For Mr. Augusto Villar, with affection, Helena and Mateus. The letters come out straight, like someone who learned to walk by looking forward. She checks the clock, calculates the bus schedule, and knows that tomorrow she'll have to walk faster to find time for someone no one is in a hurry to see. Before turning off the light, she whispers into the room, "God, let me be a bridge where they built a wall," and the house understands the prayer without needing a dictionary. In the morning, The sky carries the color of a shy promise, and Helena puts on her uniform with the dignity of someone signing a treaty with the day. Matthias puts on his backpack, slips the drawing into a plastic sleeve so it won't crease, and smiles in a way that lights bulbs that aren't even on. On the bus, the seats tell stories with loose screws and scratched windows, and the city rushes past outside, eager to arrive somewhere it no longer feels. Helena holds Matthias's hand and silently wishes that his childhood takes its time learning expensive words like contempt and absence. At the hospital, the reception smells of neutral perfumes and trained smiles, and the hallway of the ward breathes softly so as not to disturb those fighting their own bodies. Augusto Viller smiles when he sees them, a smile that smells like bread baked late, but still warm enough to feed. Matthias steps forward, takes the drawing from his backpack, and explains each line with the seriousness of someone presenting a treasure map. Helena adjusts the pillow, places the flowers in a glass cup, and cracks open the window just enough to let in a breeze that knows how to say, "I'm here." The old man holds the drawing like someone receiving a gift too precious to deserve and lets out a soft, "Thank you," that carries more life than the word can hold. Helena reads the card aloud, and the room learns a new alphabet where affection has 4 syllables and no hurry. Matthias asks permission to read a passage from his notebook, a piece of a story without caped heroes, just people who keep trying to be good. Augusto Viller closes his eyes to listen better, and his eyelids tremble like clothes on a clothesline when the wind wants to talk. Helena watches them, an old man and a boy, stitching time together with the thread of their voices, and realizes there are cures that don't come in prescriptions. The clock marks the end of visiting hours, but no one counts how much can fit into 5 minutes when love learns how to wear a watch. The sound of hurried footsteps fills the hallway, and the nurse peers through the half-open door with the urgency of someone bringing news that will change the air. The nurse asks Helena to follow her to reception, something about an authorization form, a piece of paper the system insists on demanding as a password for tenderness. Helena hesitates, because Augusto Viller's hand is still warm in hers, but she hurries so as not to interfere with what she doesn't understand. Matthias stays in the room with the drawing on his lap and decides to read aloud an essay he wrote at school about quiet kinds of courage. He talks about people who hold doors open for strangers, about those who smile at the grocery counter, about old men who teach the names of plants. Augusto Viller opens his eyes and listens, following the rhythm like someone walking barefoot down a road that knows every stone by its nickname. From the hallway, loud voices approach, like thunder that learned to wear Italian shoes and Swiss watches. Matthias swallows the end of his paragraph because he recognizes a perfume he's smelled before, the same scent from the great room of the mansion, the one that erases the smell of birthday cake. The doorknob turns hastily, and the air in the room loses its manners, giving way to a coldness that asks neither permission nor forgiveness. Marcelo Viller enters like someone inspecting performance metrics, his eyes scanning the room in search of something to control. He sees the boy beside his father, the drawing, the simple flowers, and the whole scene looks to him like a layout error on a page he's been trying to design with money. Matthias stands slowly, holding the drawing in both hands, discovering that steadiness isn't taught, it's born when it's needed. The millionaire steps forward 2 paces, and the silence grows heavy as a vault door, because some encounters charge a toll in breath. Augusto Viller tries to say his son's name, but the voice stumbles halfway, and the sound turns into a plea only the heart can translate. Marcelo adjusts the cuff of his suit as if organizing an argument, and his watch gleams as though it were endorsing the last word. The entire room feels suspended by an invisible thread, and no one knows whether it will snap or become a knot that ties instead. The morning sun slips through the slats of the hospital window with a pale, timid glow, as if even it were ashamed to shine on so much loneliness. Helena arrives holding Mateus's hand, carrying a small bouquet of daisies and a juice box, like a grandson visiting his grandfather. Awake, Augusto Viller tries to sit up in bed and smiles when he sees them. A weak but genuine smile, the kind that seems to stitch hope back into the chest. "We brought flowers, Mr. Augusto," says Mateus, his voice still too young to know how to hide tenderness. Helena adjusts his pillow, wipes the bedside table with a tissue, and tries to hide the tears that insist on escaping. The old man holds the boy's drawing, studies every line, and says, "You know, it's been years since anyone drew me with this much color." The boy beams proudly and replies, "My mom says color is how we heal the world's eyes." The nurse watches from the doorway, quietly moved by the scene. The clock seems to slow down, and for a moment the room stops being a hospital. It becomes a home. Helena reads aloud a verse she'd written on a folded slip of paper and hands it to Augusto, who reads it with his lips. There are embraces that time cannot undo. The old man closes his eyes, breathes deeply, and murmurs, "Maybe time just forgot to embrace me." The silence that follows is heavy, but it doesn't hurt. It's the kind that carries affection inside. Helena looks at Mateus and thinks that maybe God sent that boy precisely to fill the empty spaces gold could never reach. Mateus takes a small notebook from his backpack and starts writing something as the old man watches curiously. "Is that a diary?" Augusto asks. "No," the boy answers with a smile. "It's a list of good things that happen when we do good." The old man chuckles, a weak laugh, but filled with truth. "Then you can already write down that you made my day." Helena holds back her tears with a tissue and changes the subject, asking if he needs anything. Augusto asks only for a story. Anyone, as long as it's told with a mother's voice. She begins to tell a simple memory. The sound of rain hitting the window of the house where she grew up, the smell of coffee and warm bread, her father's voice calling her to school. Augusto closes his eyes, and the sound of her story echoes inside him like an old prayer. Mateus listens closely, and with every word he feels the old man become less of a patient and more of a person, less body, more soul. When the story ends, the heart monitor beeps in steady rhythm, as if the heart had finally found something to believe in. Helena notices the change in Augusto's expression and silently thanks God for that brief moment of peace. When they stand to leave, Augusto holds Mateus's hand and Helena's at the same time. "You've reminded me there's still warmth in the world," he says, his eyes glistening. Helena replies that they'll return later that evening, but the old man insists on opening the drawer beside the bed. From it, he pulls out a small photograph, a boy sitting on a man's lap, both smiling in an old picnic scene. "This was my son, Marcelo," he says, his voice cracking like glass. "He was so full of life." Helena feels her body go cold. She recognizes that smile. The same man who now ignores his father is the one who lives in the mansion where she works. The photograph slips from the old man's hands and falls face down on the floor. Helena bends to pick it up, studies it for a moment, and stores that face deep in her memory. In the background, the sound of footsteps in the hallway slices through the air. A nurse rushes in holding an envelope and says, "Mr. Viller, urgent correspondence just arrived from your son's office." The old man's smile fades, and the newborn joy seems to spill across the floor. High above the city, in a glass-walled tower, Marcelo Viller watches the skyline like someone checking real-time performance results. The phone rings. His secretary announces the hospital documents have been delivered. He simply replies, "Leave them on the desk. I'll look at them later." No urgency. No emotion. The office screens reflect the same sterile shine as his polished ego, and with every click, he trades a little more humanity for control. His eyes move through profits and numbers with the boredom of someone who's already won but doesn't know what to do with victory. Behind him, an old photo of his father on the wall seems to stare back. For a brief moment, the memory unsettles him. He grabs the frame, flips it upside down, and slides it into a drawer. The past belongs in the archive. A simple gesture, but it sounds like an epitaph. An associate enters to discuss investments, and Marcelo, cold as ever, cuts off any hint of personal conversation. "Don't bring me sentimental problems. Bring me results." The words echo like a command his own heart obeys, silencing any trace of affection. Later, while having lunch alone at an expensive restaurant, Marcelo scrolls through reports on his tablet and forgets the taste of what he's eating. His mind drifts to the hospital for a fleeting moment but quickly retreats. Guilt isn't a product he trades in. At the next table, a woman holds her elderly father's hand and smiles. Marcelo watches for a few seconds, then looks away, as if afraid the reflection might return memories that cost too much to feel. A hospital notification flashes on his phone. Mr. Augusto Viller received flowers and a family visit. The word family makes his stomach tighten. "Family," he mutters under his breath. The waiter approaches and asks if everything is all right. "Perfectly," Marcelo answers. But the glass in his hand trembles. That single word, family, strikes his pride like a hammer, leaving an invisible crack. Who could have visited him? And why? He opens the security app linked to the hidden camera he installed in his father's hospital room, but the feed is corrupted. He shuts the tablet with irritation, pays the bill without waiting for change, and walks out without a word. The street feels louder, more alive, and that, somehow, disturbs him. Back at the mansion, Helena greets him at the door with the same respect as always, but his gaze is a blade. "I heard my father's been having visitors, yours perhaps?" he asks, his tone slicing through the air. Helena swallows hard, neither denying nor confirming. "He was very lonely, Mr. Viller." The simplicity of her answer irritates him more than any excuse could. "Loneliness is a choice, Mrs. Helena. He made his." She holds back her tears and tries to change the subject, but Marcelo turns his back and ends the conversation as if closing a door that leads straight to the past. In the hallway, Mateus watches from behind the wall, his heart tightening at the sight of his mother being humiliated. Helena takes a deep breath and returns to work, but her hands tremble as she polishes the silverware, each glass shining back at her like a mirror, forcing her to look injustice in the eye. When Marcelo heads upstairs to his office, the mansion's clock reads 10:10 p.m. Outside, the rain begins, fine but determined. Inside, Helena makes a decision. Tomorrow, she will return to the hospital, even without permission, because some promises are stronger than fear. While his mother sleeps, Mateus sits at the kitchen table with his notebook open and pencil in hand. The small house is quiet, the sound of rain filling the silence like background music for courage. He draws the hospital room in detail, every flower, every smile of Augusto Viller, and writes beneath it, "For the man who teaches me what it means to be good." The letters come out shaky but sincere. He knows his mother worries about her job, but his heart doesn't understand hierarchy, only kindness. He looks at the clock, still early enough to try something. He decides to write a letter to the old man, thanking him for listening to his stories and for smiling even when it hurts. "You make me believe that adults can have faith too," he writes before signing it. He folds the paper, slips it into an envelope, and tucks it inside his backpack, beside the drawing and a small piece of bread left over from dinner. Deep down, he feels something is about to change. And it isn't fear, it's destiny beginning to move. The next morning, Helena wakes to the sound of the kettle and sees Mateus already dressed, backpack on his shoulders. "Where are you going so early?" "To the hospital, Mom. I just want to take the drawing." She hesitates, thinking of her boss, the risk, but the look in her son's eyes is a plea no rule could ever deny. "All right, but be quick and come back before noon." Mateus hugs her tightly and leaves with determined steps, as if courage could fit inside a pair of worn-out sneakers. The bus is crowded, but he doesn't mind. He gazes out the window, silently rehearsing the words he'll say to Mr. Viller, feeling something growing inside him. Maybe the realization that caring is the most beautiful way to exist. At the hospital, he passes reception, greets the nurse, and goes straight to the room. When he opens the door, he finds Augusto awake, struggling to reach a glass of water. He runs to help, smiling. "I thought you'd forgotten about me." The old man laughs softly. "You're hard to forget, son." Mateus takes the envelope from his backpack and hands it to him. "I wrote you a letter." Augusto opens it with trembling hands and reads slowly. Each word feels like a different kind of medicine, for the body, for the heart, for the loneliness. "You're light, boy," he murmurs, wiping his eyes. "No one's ever written to me like this." He holds Mateus's hand and asks him to sit. "I want to tell you something, a story my son never wanted to hear." The boy listens closely as the old man speaks of a time when love was worth more than shares and inheritances. But power changes names, Mateus. It turns affection into weakness. When he finishes, he looks at the boy with tenderness and says, "Promise me you'll never let money rule your soul." Mateus nods, eyes brimming with tears. "I promise." The old man smiles, closes his eyes, and drifts into sleep. The boy stays there for a while, watching the man he's grown to love without knowing why. But as he rises to leave, a security guard rushes in. "You're Mrs. Helena's boy?" "Yes. Mr. Marcelo wants to see you." Now, Mateus's blood runs cold. In the hospital corridor, the echo of the guard's footsteps sounds like war drums. Mateus tries to stay calm, but his heart beats out of rhythm. As he turns the corner, he sees Marcelo Viller standing tall, immaculate suit, marble expression, eyes cold as a wet blade. "So, you're the little visitor who's been bothering my father?" His voice cuts through the air, and Mateus stays silent. "Answer me, boy." Helena arrives, breathless, her face pale. "Mr. Viller, he only wanted to give him a drawing." The millionaire turns slowly and casts her a look heavier than a shout. "Drawings don't cure illness, Helena, and pity doesn't pay hospital bills." Helena lowers her eyes, holding her son's hand. Mr. Augusto enjoys his company. He smiles when the boy's around. Marcelo inhales deeply, forces a calm tone, but the venom still seeps through. My father smiles at anything that helps him forget what a failure my childhood was. The words slice through the corridor like darts. Mateus steps forward. He didn't fail. He just loved too much. The silence that follows is deadly. Marcelo stares at him in disbelief. No one had ever confronted him before. "You're brave or stupid?" he says, dripping with contempt. Helena tries to pull her son back, but Mateus stands firm. "My mom taught me to respect good people, even when the world isn't." Marcelo steps back, unsettled, and the hatred he usually hides behind sarcasm flashes through his wounded eyes. "Get out. Now." Helena grabs Mateus's hand and starts to walk away, but before leaving, the boy looks back. "Mr. Viller, you should read what your father keeps in the drawer." The The sentence falls like a stone shattering a mirror. Marcelo says nothing. He just turns and walks into the room. The old man is asleep, Mateus's letter open beside him. Marcelo picks it up, reads one line, and his expression changes. A faint tremor, an eye that tries not to yield. "My son in spirit," the letter reads. He tears the paper in half, but the words are already burned into him. In the background, the heart monitor speeds up, as if Augusto's heart were answering his son's anger. At the doorway, Helena watches unseen. She sees Marcelo leaning over his father, his breathing tense, guilt pounding like a hammer inside his chest. "You should have stayed asleep, old man," he mutters, but his voice breaks halfway. The old man opens his eyes, weakly, and manages to whisper only one word. "Son." Marcelo freezes. "Don't call me that." He storms out, and the automatic doors close behind him with the sharp sound of goodbye. Helena enters, takes Augusto's hand, and notices a tear sliding down his cheek. "Don't cry, Mr. Viller. God still writes straight, even through the pain of men." The old man looks at the ceiling and murmurs, "My son will understand. I just don't know if in time." The words hang in the air, heavy, and Helena realizes that time doesn't always heal. Sometimes it only teaches us how to say goodbye. From the hallway comes a sharp thud. Marcelo has kicked the wall hard. His anger isn't at his father, it's at the mirror, and each step he takes pulls him closer to an invisible abyss, the place where pride and regret finally meet. Night falls over the city, and a cold wind drags memories along with the leaves. Helena returns home exhausted, but her body refuses rest. Her heart beats too loud to sleep. She sits on the edge of the bed, removes her uniform, and looks at her calloused hands, still trembling from the scene at the hospital. On the nightstand sits an old photograph, Mateus as a baby in her arms, and she thinks that maybe the greatest luxury in the world is sleeping with a clean conscience. Outside, the rain hums softly, but inside her, there's a storm. She opens her notebook and writes. Not every silence is peace. Sometimes it's just fear pretending to be calm. Tears blur the words, but she keeps writing. The clock strikes midnight, and the ticking sounds exactly like the heart does when it wants to scream but can't. Helena prays softly. Lord, teach my son to be strong, but never so strong that he loses his tenderness. The sound of the door lock turning startles her. It's Mateus, returning from his room, his eyes full of questions and no ready answers. Mom, why does Mr. Marcelo treat his father like that? The question comes out innocent, but lands heavy as a sentence. Helena takes a long moment to answer. Because some hearts get sick from power, my son. Mateus lowers his head, fists clenched. I wish I could heal his heart. Helena smiles, sadness and pride blending in one fragile expression. Maybe you already are, just by wanting to. The boy leans in, resting his head on her shoulder, and for an instant, the whole world seems to fit inside that embrace. Mr. Augusto called me son today, he whispers. Helena closes her eyes, the weight of those words sinking deep. He misses his real son, love. You filled a space no one else cared to touch. Silence returns, but this time, it's a beautiful one, the kind that heals. Helena tucks him in, turns off the light, and whispers, the good we do, son, always comes back, even if the world takes its time to notice. She believes it, though deep inside, she fears what tomorrow will bring. When dawn arrives, Helena puts on her uniform and prepares coffee with steady hands, though her heart still stumbles. Before leaving, she kisses Mateus's forehead and asks him to stay home. Promise. I promise. She smiles, unaware that promise will break before sunset. At the hospital, The air feels different. Nurses whisper. The doctor avoids her eyes. Helena senses the bad news before hearing it. Mr. Villar's condition worsened overnight, the doctor says. The floor seems to vanish beneath her. She rushes to the room and finds the old man unconscious, breathing through machines. He called for you. And the boy, before he passed out, the nurse murmurs. Helena takes his hand, tears falling onto the sheets. Hold on, Mr. Villar. Your son still needs to learn how to love. The old man seems to respond. His fingers move faintly. Helena understands the message. Don't give up on me. And there, between faith and machinery, she promises she won't let the story end like this. In his office, Marcelo Villar signs contracts while the wall clock repeats his impatience. Everything about him is urgency, even the silence. When the phone rings, he answers with irritation, but the nurse's tone disarms him. Mr. Villar, your father's condition has worsened, and the maid was with him. Anger comes before pain. Helena, he repeats, as if the name itself were an insult. She had no authorization. He hangs up without thanking her, rises, and strides across the room. The reflection in the glass shows a man who's lost the line between power and fear. In the elevator, his mind repeats the lies pride invents to avoid guilt. She's just taking advantage. That's all. But his father's voice, distant yet insistent, echoes inside him. My son, the one who wins is the one who reaches the embrace alive. He shakes his head, trying to drive the memory away. When the car stops at the hospital entrance, the driver offers assistance. But Marcelo is already out, and this time, he isn't carrying only arrogance. He's carrying a premonition. He storms through the lobby like an elegant hurricane, and people step aside. Helena sits in the waiting area, her face weary, eyes swollen from crying. When she sees him, she rises instinctively. Mr. Marcelo, please. But he cuts her off. You've gone too far. Who do you think you are? A nurse? A saint? His voice echoes down the corridor. I just wanted to help him. He was alone. Marcelo steps closer. He's always been alone, because he chose guilt over success. Helena feels the ground slipping beneath her, but she stands her ground. It's not success, Mr. Marcelo. It's loneliness disguised as power. The words hit their target, and for a second, his eyes falter. He steps back, takes a deep breath, and asks, almost whispering, what did he say before he passed out? Helena hesitates, then answers softly. He said your name and Mateus's. The boy's name triggers something, a flicker of pain behind Marcelo's eyes. He turns his face away, trying to hide the sound of something breaking inside him. In the hospital room, the air feels heavy. The sound of the machines composes a sad symphony. Marcelo steps in, stares at his motionless father, and feels a chill climb up his spine. So this is it. This is how you leave me. He tries to sound cold, but his voice trembles. You spent your whole life demanding that I be good, but you never asked if I knew how to be happy. The old man's hand moves slightly. Marcelo steps closer, startled by the gesture, and instinctively takes that hand in his own. It's cold, but alive. Don't you dare leave me without hearing me now, Dad. The tears he spent years suppressing finally surface, melting his pride. I still know how to fight, but I never learned how to lose. The nurse slips quietly into the room and places an envelope on the bedside table. He asked that you receive this, if his condition worsened. Marcelo stares at the paper for a few seconds, hesitating. The familiar handwriting on the back cuts through him like both a knife and a memory. He opens it slowly, and the first line changes the air in the room. My son, if I don't wake up, I want you to know that I loved you in silence. Marcelo Villar sits in the chair beside the bed, the envelope trembling between his fingers. He reads slowly, as if afraid of what he'll find. I failed while trying to get it right, son. I thought hardening you would protect you, but it only taught you to hurt." He closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, but the words keep burning. "Everything I built in stone has crumbled, but what I planted in love still blooms, in a boy you've chosen to ignore." The mention of Mateus makes him freeze. "A boy," he mutters, anger trying to smother fear. "He visits me, listens to me, calls me father. And maybe he's the true heir of what's best in me." Marcelo grips the paper tightly, creasing its edges, but he can't tear it. The words are both blades and mirrors, cutting and reflecting everything he doesn't want to see. Tears slide down his face, uninvited. He looks at his father, intubated, and realizes how small his body seems now. A giant reduced by time, yet still immense in everything that matters. The nurse enters quietly, gathers the tray, and watches from a distance. Marcelo wipes his face quickly, trying to hide it. "Can he still hear me?" "Maybe, sir." The heart listens long after the ears give up. He takes his father's hand and presses his forehead to it. "I never became what you wanted me to be, and I never learned to love without measuring the cost." The words come out as sobs, but no one judges him here. Helena appears at the doorway, hesitating to step in. She sees him like this for the first time. No armor, no mask. She decides to stay silent. Marcelo continues. "You found a better heir, didn't you? A boy who showed me what I lost." He smiles through the tears. "You know what's ironic? I barely even know him." At that moment, the heart monitor blares sharply and Augusto Villar's body trembles. Helena rushes to the bedside, holds the old man's arm, but it's useless. The line begins to fall. Marcelo shouts for the doctor, but destiny doesn't wait for orders. Doctors rush in, try to revive him, but time has already chosen its side. Helena steps back, hands over her mouth, while Marcelo stands frozen, paralyzed between guilt and disbelief. The continuous tone of the monitor is the loudest silence he has ever heard. The doctor looks at him, shakes his head. "I'm sorry." Marcelo drops to his knees, tears spilling onto the bedsheet. "Dad, not now, please." No answer. Helena places a hand on his shoulder, but the touch is too gentle to hold back such collapse. "He heard you," she says softly, voice breaking. "And he forgave you." Marcelo lifts his eyes, gazes at his father's peaceful face, and realizes that the peace he'd been searching for had always been there. He just had to stop shouting to hear it. On the envelope, one last line written in blue ink catches his attention. "Don't let love die with me." He presses the paper to his chest and weeps in silence. Down the hall, a child's voice echoes. Mateus has arrived, holding the same bouquet of daisies. And once again, destiny prepares its final scene. Helena finds Mateus in the reception area and pulls him into a tight embrace before he can say a word. "Son, Mr. Villar has rested." The boy understands, even without truly understanding. The flowers slip from his hands, scattering petals across the floor like colorful tears. "He promised he'd get better, Mom." She hugs him tighter. "He did, love. He just changed places." Mateus sobs softly as Helena leads him to the room. Marcelo is still there, standing, his face disfigured by the tears he spent a lifetime trying to hide. When he sees the boy, something shifts. His hardened eyes begin to soften. "So it was you, the boy from the letter." Mateus doesn't answer. He simply walks closer and places the drawing he made over the old man's chest. He liked this one. Marcelo looks down at the paper, at the two hands drawn together, and feels a knot form in his throat. "I never learned how to hold the right hand," he admits quietly. Helena watches in silence, without judgment. Sometimes forgiveness begins when words end. The doctor enters and hands an envelope to Helena. "He left this with us, said it was for the boy." Mateus takes it, confused, and looks up at Marcelo. "Go ahead, open it," the millionaire says, his voice hoarse. Inside is a small photograph, the same old picnic, and on the back, a handwritten note. "Life smiles when love finds company." Mateus smiles through his tears and hands the photo to Marcelo. "I think it's yours too." The man holds it as if it were a relic, and the sound of his own sobs surprises him. "My father loved us more than we ever deserved." Helena touches his shoulder gently and says, "There's still time to become the man he saw in you." Marcelo breathes deeply, looks at Mateus, and whispers, "You showed me what love without change looks like." The boy smiles. "Your father taught me that." For a moment, the world seems to stop. Only 3 hearts remain, beating in unison. When they leave the room, the hallway feels brighter. Helena holds Mateus's hand, and Marcelo walks behind them, carrying the envelope in his pocket like a new life. Outside, the sky opens and sunlight touches the hospital's glass, turning their tears into diamonds. "What happens now?" Mateus asks. Marcelo thinks for a moment, exhales, and answers, "Now, we start over." But his tone sounds more like a promise than a certainty. Helena understands. Some wounds don't close, they just learn how not to hurt as much. The 3 walk in silence, and when they reach the sidewalk, a black car is waiting. Marcelo offers them a ride. Helena refuses, but his eyes speak of a man who can no longer stand distance. "Please," she agrees. Inside the car, the radio plays a gentle melody, and for a moment, it feels as though Augusto Viller himself is there, quietly guiding their fate. But what none of them know is that inside the father's envelope, there's another letter, still sealed, and within it, a secret that will change everything. The next morning dawns slow, as if the whole world had decided to honor the mourning of a good man. Helena arranges flowers on Augusto Viller's grave, while Mateus places his drawing beside the tombstone, carefully protected by a plastic cover. "So the wind won't take it, Mom." She smiles sadly. "The wind only takes what has no roots, my love." Behind them, Marcelo Viller stands in silence. No mask of power, no tie, no armor of pride. He still doesn't know how to ask for forgiveness without seeming weak. So he just stands there, still, human. "My father used to say one gesture could change everything," he murmurs. Helena looks at him. "It still can." He nods, breathes deeply, and kneels for the first time before someone who doesn't fear him. The cold ground receives him with mercy. "Father, if you can hear me, know that I'm learning. Late, but I am." The words tremble, yet come out whole. Mateus takes his hand, and that simple gesture turns silence into forgiveness. Back at the mansion, the air feels different. The portraits of old victories seem to lose their shine, as if time itself had decided to return humility to their frames. Helena steps into the office only to return the keys, but Marcelo stops her. "Stay? This house only has value if good people live in it." She hesitates, and he insists. "My father always said your kindness was what made this house breathe." His voice cracks halfway through the sentence. She nods, but on one condition. "I want to keep taking Mateus to the hospital to visit the other patients. He loved helping there." Marcelo smiles faintly. "My father would approve." On the desk, the still-sealed envelope rests like a heart that never stopped beating. Marcelo looks at it, uncertain. He left this, the last letter. Said it should only be opened when I felt ready. Helena meets his eyes. "And do you?" He looks away, thoughtful. "Not yet, but I'm getting there." And for the first time, he smiles without arrogance. That night, the mansion sleeps in peace for the first time in years. Rain falls softly, and the sound of drops against the glass feels just like the hospital, only without pain. Marcelo sits at the table, turns on the lamp, and stares at the envelope. His name, Marcelo, is written in shaky letters, and something about the curve of the M makes him swallow hard. He reaches for a pair of scissors, then changes his mind. He tears it open by hand, slowly, as if opening his own chest. Inside, there's only a single page and a small golden key. He reads, "If you're reading this, it's because you've learned how to listen to silence." This key opens the drawer in my old office. Inside, you'll find what's left of our story. Marcelo's heart begins to race. His father's office was in their childhood home, abandoned for years. He closes his eyes and decides he'll go there tomorrow. But as he turns off the light, the camera lingers on the torn envelope resting on the desk, the key glinting faintly beneath the lamp, as if old Augusto Viller were still guiding him through the dark. Morning arrives wrapped in mist and nostalgia. Marcelo drives alone to the family's old estate, a sleeping mansion covered in ivy and the dust of memories. Each step he takes inside echoes like a visit to his own past. The walls seem to hold echoes of laughter, and the faint scent of his father's cologne still lingers in the air. He kneels before the old wooden desk and searches for the drawer mentioned in the letter. The key turns with difficulty, creaking as if it too hesitated to reveal what it had been guarding. Inside lies a folder, a brown envelope, and an album of yellowed photographs. Marcelo opens the envelope and reads, "Donation agreement. Augusto Viller Foundation, in the name of Helena Duarte." He freezes. The signatures confirm it. His father had transferred part of his wealth to create a foundation in Helena's name. At the bottom of the folder, a handwritten note reads, "She was more family than the blood that denied me." The impact shatters him. He collapses into the chair, covering his face as the sound of his own sobbing fills the room. When he finally catches his breath, he opens the photo album. The first pages show his childhood, simple parties, genuine laughter, his father's arm around him. Further on, a recent photo, Augusto in the hospital, smiling beside Helena and Mateus. On the back, a sentence written in trembling letters. "Here lies what's left of my heart, returned by the right hands." Marcelo runs his fingers over the picture, as if trying to touch the love he ignored for so long. Tears fall onto the paper, smudging the ink until the three figures blur together into one glowing stain of light. He understands everything now. His father wasn't leaving him a fortune, but a legacy. The true inheritance was the gesture. He closes the album, breathes deeply, and whispers, "Father, now I understand." Before leaving, he looks up toward the ceiling and adds softly, "And I promise to finish what you started." Hours later, he parks in front of the mansion. Helena waits for him in the garden, worry written across her face. "Are you all right, sir?" "No, but I'm better than before." He hands her the document. "The foundation, it was meant for you." Helena's eyes widen. She takes a step back. "No, that's too much." Marcelo smiles softly. "It's not charity. It's justice." Mateus comes running with a book in his hands and asks, "Can I read you something?" Marcelo kneels down to his level. "Of course, champ." The boy reads a line he wrote for his school assignment. "Love is the only investment that always brings profit." Marcelo laughs through his tears. "You and my father speak the same language." Helena watches them with tenderness. At last, the past begins to bow before forgiveness. Days pass, and the foundation starts to take shape. Helena leads the volunteer wing. Mateus visits patients with flowers and drawings. And Marcelo funds everything, quietly, without putting his name on a single sign. He wants the credit to stay with those who always had the right heart. News of the Augusto Viller Foundation spreads through the papers, but Marcelo avoids interviews. When asked why, he answers, My father taught me that goodness doesn't need a spotlight. Day by day, something changes in him. His voice grows gentler, his eyes more human, his gestures simpler. A man who once measured the world in numbers now measures it in kindness. Watching from afar, Helena silently whispers, "He's beginning to understand." In the foundation's office, a portrait of Augusto smiling hangs above a plaque that reads, "Whoever treats an old man with kindness embraces his own destiny." One afternoon, Mateus finds Marcelo in the garden, sitting under a tree. "Are you sad, sir?" "No, Mateus. Just thinking." The boy sits beside him. "About your father?" Marcelo smiles faintly. "About how he keeps teaching me, even from afar." The boy opens a book and reads aloud. "Love is when we remember with joy, not with pain." Marcelo looks at him for a moment and replies, "Then I guess I finally know what love means." A soft breeze passes through, carrying the sound of laughter time could never erase. Helena appears in the doorway, watching them. A man who once saw only numbers, and a boy who saw only goodness. And there, in that contrast, she sees true redemption. The past making peace with the future. At the end of the day, Marcelo walks into the foundation and hands the receptionist a sealed envelope. "Keep this. Open it when I'm no longer around." No one asks questions. On the way back, he passes the hospital where it all began and sees children playing in the newly renovated garden. One of them holds a paper flower, just like the one Mateus drew months ago. He smiles and closes his eyes for a moment, as if he could hear his father's voice saying, "Now you've got it, son." The sun sets behind the building, painting the glass in gold, reflecting an image of him lighter, freer. For the first time, Marcelo Villar walks without hurry. And for the first time, silence doesn't hurt, it embraces. Months later, the foundation inaugurates a new wing, the Mateus Hope Center. Journalists, nurses, and patients fill the courtyard. Helena gives a brief speech. This place was born from the kindness of a boy who believed that love can heal too. Mateus takes the microphone and adds, "And from a man who learned it's never too late to change." In the back, Marcelo applauds, eyes glistening. On the stage, an enlarged portrait of Augusto Villar, and beneath it, a plaque that reads, "Augusto Villar Foundation, where love keeps working." The crowd is moved. Helena looks up to the sky and whispers, "You can rest now, sir." A gentle breeze sweeps through the courtyard, making the flowers sway, as if the old man were answering from somewhere among the clouds. Mateus smiles and waves upward. Marcelo places a hand over his heart, feeling his father's heartbeat still there, only now, at peace. After the ceremony, Marcelo walks up to Helena and hands her an envelope. "It's what was left of the inheritance. I want you to manage it, to keep the foundation alive." Helena tries to refuse, but he insists. "My father left me too much wealth, his, and the kind you and your son taught me." She accepts, moved to tears. "Thank you for giving back to the world the man Mr. Augusto raised." Marcelo replies with humility, "I only became a son again because your boy taught me what it means to be human." Their eyes meet in silence, but say everything. Mateus walks over and hands Marcelo a small paper flower. "For you to keep, just like the ones Grandpa Augusto liked." Marcelo holds the gift and feels that, at last, the circle is complete. That night, alone at home, he opens the envelope he had left at the foundation. Inside is only a letter addressed to Mateus. "Keep doing good, son. When the world grows tired, you'll be the one to remind everyone what love truly means." He smiles and looks up at the sky. The wind blows, and the curtains dance like joyful old memories. The camera pulls back, revealing the mansion bathed in warm light. No longer a symbol of vanity, but of rebirth. On the portrait of Augusto Viller hanging on the wall, the light flickers softly, as if the old man were winking. Love, at last, had found its home. Years later, the foundation has become a beacon of care and compassion. Children run through the halls. The elderly are welcomed with hugs. And on the walls, Augusto Viller's words are painted in golden letters. Helena now oversees the place with the calm grace of someone who has fulfilled her mission. Mateus, now a teenager, hands out books to patients and says, "My grandpa used to say love doesn't die. It just changes address." Everyone smiles. Marcelo, his hair now gray, arrives quietly and watches the life around him. People greet him with respect, but he prefers to stay in the background. "I did it, Father," he whispers. "Not the empire, but what you always wanted from me, a clean heart." He touches the frame and closes his eyes. In the garden, Mateus plants a young tree. "This one's for Mr. Augusto," he says. Helena helps him cover the roots with soil and smiles. "It'll grow strong, just like he wanted." Marcelo approaches, places a hand on the boy's shoulder, and adds, "And it will give shade to anyone weary from the sun of life." They embrace. Some stories don't end when the body rests. They live on in the gestures of those who remain, in the hands that heal, in the words that comfort, in the eyes that learn to truly see another. Because love, when it's real, never dies. It simply changes its voice. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to our channel, leave a like, and share this video so more people can discover that even the smallest act of courage can change the world. Write in the comments, "I believe in the power of courage." Together, let's keep spreading stories that transform lives and prove that hope can rise from the most unexpected voices. Thank you so much for your support.